Hi, welcome to Davison Free Methodist Church Online. We're so glad that you're here with us today. My name is Jeff Ford, and I'm one of the pastors here, and we're just so glad that you've taken the time to stop by and to be encouraged with us today. We're glad that you're here. Would you take a moment to check in with us today? Just grab your cell phone, if you will, and text that number 810-226-9979. And text the word check-in. We'd love for you to do that because that lets us know who's with us today. Be sure to check in the rest of your family. And if you're watching it together in a watch party or a group, make sure that everyone checks in so that we know that you are connecting with us today. Thank you for doing that. By the way, you can also scroll down a little bit further once you get in that check-in, and you'll find our VIP card. Or you can text VIP to 810-226-9979. Now, the reason why that's important is that you're a very important person to us. And so if you get to our VIP card, we'd love to hear more about you. You might tell us how you found us if this is your first time as you're checking in. You also might want to scroll to the end of that and leave a prayer request with us. We love to hear your prayer requests, and we have a team of people that every week pray over those needs. So be sure to use the VIP card to find out more about our church, but also to leave that prayer request for us. We want to connect with you in the special needs that you might have in your life as well. So if you would text that same number, 810-226-9979, but if you text the word care, then you can leave a message for us of a special concern that you have or a special need. Some way that we can help care for some need in your life. If you send us a message, we'll be able to get back with you and see what we can do to meet you at that point of need. You can also use that same number as a way of giving. You can text to give. You just text the word give to that same number, and there you'll be prompted so that you can go online and give to the ministries of Jesus through Davison Free Methodist Church. Hey, speaking of giving, thank you for the ways in which you're doing that. Some of you are giving through text. Others of you are joining us with Preach and Pray, and you're dropping an offering in the box that's there. Thank you for that. Others of you are sticking a check in the mail, and you're doing it that way. Thank you for that. Others of you are doing it automated through your bank, and some of you are doing it online. You're finding our website, and you're giving that way. Thank you for the ways in which you're giving. Thank you for the ways in which you're supporting the mission of Jesus through Davison Free Methodist Church. As we look forward to regathering in our building, we need to make sure that we're able to ramp up some financing that we need for materials to do that. So be sure to make sure that you are keeping up with your giving in that way. By the way, all the information I've been sharing with you, you can find on our website. It's kind of a new and improved website in that we've been doing some upgrading. So if you haven't been there for a while, take a look at it. It's dfmchurch.org. And there you can find out all kinds of information about the church. And in the media and messages section, you can find out the stuff we've been talking about today. Today, our Preach and Pray service is meeting. Have you tried that out yet? They meet on the lawn at the church. It's a shorter service than this one, and it's simply about preaching and praying, actually. And we get together on the lawn, and we enjoy each other's company, and we practice social distancing and safety measures, and we have a great time together. If you haven't tried that yet, try it. But listen, if you're trying it next week, we're changing the time. That's right. Preach and Pray will now meet at 9:30 a.m. 9:30 next Sunday. And here's an additional plus for those of you that have been kind of waiting for this. We're going to be opening up the building for the restrooms only. So if you come next week, come at 9:30, and restrooms will be open if you need them. We're actually preparing and doing a lot of planning for getting back into the regathering in the building. So be watching for details of how that's coming up in the weeks to come. But the first phase of getting ready for that is changing our Preach and Pray and moving it back to 9:30 so we can be ready for an 11 o'clock event inside the building. Also, if you've been one of those folks that have been driving up and rolling down your window to listen to Preach and Pray, well, you can still drive up. You can still roll down your window, but we've also added a feature where you can tune in on the FM band of your radio in your car, and you can listen to Preach and Pray there as you're watching it from the parking lot. Our drive-in feature is going to be up and running this week, so we'd love for you to be a part of that. Have you considered having a watch party? Yeah, that's where you invite some others into your home and you watch the service together. You could do it Sunday morning at 11 and watch it as it first comes out. You could take a meal together before or afterwards. Or you could use it later in the week even to invite others to hear what you're hearing of how Jesus is working in our lives. And we'd love for you to be a part of that. Hey, if I can help you with this watch party idea, get a hold of me through the website or through email, and I'll help you get that set up for you and your friends. Also, would you take a moment to fill out the survey? If you go to our website, you'll find the survey, and we do this periodically, and thank you for doing it in the past, but this is a brand new survey which is helping us getting ready for moving into the building. And so it's a survey asking about, well, your comfort level and how you're feeling about getting back into the building as we regather there. So we'd love to hear from you to help us in our planning. We'd love for you to be a part of that. So please take a moment to fill out that survey. 3 or 4 questions, really fast. You can do it in a couple of 3 minutes. All right. Also, on the website where you find the media, you can also find notes for today. The message that Pastor Shane is giving is going to have a page of notes that you can follow along, Bible references. You'll all find it there on the website. We'd love for you to be a part of that as well, to help you not only today, but into this next week as you're considering some of the things that Jesus has been speaking with you about during this service today. All right, kids. I'm about done, and at this point we're going to turn it over to Jen Johnson. And she's our early childhood leader here, and she does a marvelous job with little kids, and she's going to come now and she's going to give a message really for all of us, but kids, you'll want to come close. You don't want to miss that. Take it away, Jen.
Thanks, Pastor Jeff. Hi, kids. Last week we talked about unity during the children's moment. And we said that we should all work together as one mind, Jesus' mind, and so that we can be, as a group, full of love and joy and patience, and we can accomplish impossible things. Well, this week we're going to look at that a little bit closer. We're going to look at this idea of coming together and how things are okay if we're by ourselves, but so much better if we work as a group. So I brought some toys that hopefully you'll recognize. The first toy I have is Ducky from Toy Story 4, if you've ever seen that movie. It's a favorite at our house. And I also have Bunny from Toy Story 4. And these toys by themselves are pretty fun, like Ducky's wings move and his legs move. And for Bunny, all by himself, his arms move and his legs move. But watch what happens when the toys come together.
Bye, Bunny. Later, Ducky.
They talk to each other.
Oh, Bunny. Yo, Ducky.
They can talk to each other and interact. And so they are able to spend hours of fun because they can say hundreds of phrases back and forth. It's a brand new game when you have them together. And so you have this idea that more people or more things means more ideas and potentially more fun. The other toy I brought is this little Lego. And there's some pieces already stuck on this Lego. So I could sit here and take it apart, put it back together. That's about it. Maybe throw it across the room. That's about all I got. But watch what happens when I take this small Lego that's kind of fun and I attach it to the group it's supposed to be in. This is BB-8 for those of you Star Wars fans out there. And when I put this on here, this Lego becomes part of a greater whole with a greater idea. BB-8 is a robot that helps people and serves people and answers questions and stores information, suddenly it's not just one single Lego that its job is fine. Click, click. It's about all we can do with it. But when it does its job on this bigger Lego masterpiece, suddenly we have this chance to have hours and hours and hours of fun. So I want you to think about that today as we listen to Pastor Shane's message, is that by ourselves, we're amazing. Because God created us unique and in the image of Him. But when we all come together and our uniqueness is plugged into everybody else's uniqueness, you get this idea of a greater picture, or this idea of having more fun because there's more ideas and more conversation happening. So I want you to think of ways that when you come together with other people, we can serve Jesus. So whether that's worshiping together, like singing or praying or clapping or talking, or if we're learning together, we can answer questions and hear everyone else's idea so that it helps us learn more. Or if we serve together, we go out and help the community as one big group, and we can make a bigger difference that way. So I'm looking forward to seeing you soon, and I can't wait till we can all come together in person. See you next time.
1, 2, 3, go. I know your doubts. I know your doubts, and I can handle them. So be still and know. Be still and know that I am God forever. Draw near to me, and I will draw near to you. Come taste and see that the Lord is good. I see your life laid out before me. Every step, every stumble, every fall. So take heart in the trial of the moment. Know that I have gone before you through it all. Draw near to me, and I will draw near to you. Come taste and see that the Lord is good. Lay all your burdens down, lift you up to the highest heights in the heavens. You are my child now. There's nothing on earth that can separate you from my love. Lay all your burdens down. I will lift you up to the highest heights in the heavens. You are my child now. There's nothing on earth that can separate you from my love. There's nothing on earth that can separate you from my love. There's nothing on earth that can separate you from my love. You are precious to me. Don't you know I don't make mistakes? 'Cause you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You belong to me. mistakes, 'cause you are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Well, good morning, and thank you for watching the online worship for Davison Free Methodist Church. Now, you're probably watching in your home on Facebook or YouTube or on your computer. It's great that you would join us and allow Davison Free Methodist Church to encourage you and maybe inspire you here on Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. and maybe even later on demand whenever you choose to watch. You're always welcome. My name is Shane, and I'm the lead pastor at Davison Free Methodist Church, and today I have the great privilege of kicking off our new teaching series entitled One Another, Embracing the Community of Jesus. I am super excited about this particular series because I believe it'll address some needs and concerns that you might be experiencing recently. There are many things that we miss. And I've had to let go of things temporarily during these recent months. And I guess out of all the things that I have heard everyone say that they're missing is this, that they miss not having church. Most importantly, they miss the people. They miss meeting with the people. They miss their small group people. They miss their friends. They miss the conversations. They miss the community that they feel when they get together at church. Now, this teaching series, again, titled One Another, Embracing the Community of Jesus, will speak directly into that missing component of your life. I've cherry-picked the term one another straight from the pages of the New Testament of our Bible. This particular two-word English phrase is only a one word in the original Bible language of Greek. In Greek, this word is allelon, one another. And although this word is quite common in the Greek language, the early Christian pastors and authors utilized this word to give them an opportunity to speak to the entire group of Christians in churches. It's used over 100 times in the New Testament, and allelon, one another, the Greek term used by the first Christians to describe the group of gatherings of Jesus followers. And then inside that, they would offer encouragement and direction and guidance of how we should live life together with one another. This particular word is a little more nuanced than the simple way of using you as a plural pronoun. And I'm trying to think of a way that I might best describe this to you. It seems like it offers in the Greek language a greater sense of inclusion and welcome and identity and invitation. And although it's difficult to find an English equivalent to this term, I think I could kind of come up with them that maybe you would understand. You see, my wife's from Savannah, Georgia, down south. And when she speaks to a group of people, she uses a different word than the plural pronoun you. You've heard my wife speak. She utilizes the term y'all. And I guess if she's talking to a greater group of people, it's all y'all. Us in the Midwest, we too have a word to use to describe what you would be plural. We say you guys. And I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, and they have a unique word too. They say yens. Whatever the term is, the term one another in Greek allelon is a key reflection of this community that is bonded together around the person and identity and the love shared by Jesus. A Jesus community is not just focused on an upward relationship with God. That would be a religion, right? There would be a singular focus, and it would require only an individual connection to God. The Christian Jesus community is more. It's not just about you, it's about how you love others. Jesus made it clear that if you were to love God, then you had to love other people. Jesus spoke plainly about his command to his followers that they should love one another. And the display of this love would become the identifying factor and the recognizable mark of a Jesus follower in a Jesus community. In other words, you can't follow Jesus without embracing one another. You can't follow Jesus without encouraging one another. You can't follow Jesus without forgiving one another, being at peace with one another, not grumbling with one another, accepting one another, serving one another, and being devoted to one another in love. The allelon, the one another word, was combined with other verbs, other actions to encourage the community of Jesus and give them some direction of how they should live with one another. So, over the next few weeks, we'll be dialoguing and presenting opportunities for you to return to this initial basic way of interacting with the people around you and loving one another. It'll help you feel more loved, help you feel more accepted, and maybe as we gain more entrance back into our building, more opportunities to gather together with greater frequency, it'll give you opportunity to see the people you love in a greater respect in a different light. Now, let me firm up this concept by sharing a scripture passage that mentions specifically this term, allelon, one another. This passage that we'll read today comes from Ephesians chapter 4. And as you might know, Ephesians is a letter written by a pastor to the church in the ancient megacity of Ephesus. The pastor that we'll be talking about is named Paul. The church is in the city of Ephesus, and it became one of the strongest and vibrant Jesus communities in all of the early church areas. Maybe even the Apostle John and possibly the Mary, the mother of Jesus, were part of this church at Ephesus. Paul writes this letter to the Ephesians while he's in prison. And unlike other letters of Paul that seem to speak about specific problems, Ephesians is more of an overview and a celebration of how a church should operate and love one another. Allelon. So, let's read together Ephesians chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. Paul says, "As a prisoner for the Lord, then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace." Okay. Now, let me walk you through these verses and offer some comments and insights that might help you get an understanding of just what we're wanting to mention during this series. But also, I invite you to keep your ear open for the voice of Jesus that will guide you, that will help you, that will invite you into a greater consideration of how you might love one another. Full disclaimer, at the end of this message, I'm going to give you an opportunity to enter into a deep invitation, a deep opportunity to re-up your connection to a church around you, to maybe our church around you, and to experience this love with one another. So, let's enter in back to these verses today. Let's talk for just a few minutes. Let's go word by word and phrase by phrase, if we can, to talk a little bit about what it means to bear with one another and to live with one another. Paul says this, Ephesians chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. He starts by saying, "As a prisoner for the Lord, then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you've received." As a prisoner for the Lord. Now, what's Paul talking about here? Well, like I mentioned, Paul is in jail. He's under house arrest at the very least. He's been detained as a distributor of the message of Jesus, and he's under threat of maybe even losing his life as he waits to appear before the emperor himself in Rome. And while he's there, he might be able to entertain some guests and actually have some people around him where he can interact with. And at this point, he writes these letters to these other churches, Ephesus, the Ephesians being one. But I don't think Paul is saying, hey, I'm in jail and you guys are out there and you better just realize how good you have it and how bad I have it. He's not saying that at all. I believe what he's saying in this is something key. He's saying, I am alone. I am restricted. I cannot go and experience the normal things about being with other people that I want to. And he's encouraging those that can to do it, to make every effort, everything they could think of to embrace the community of Jesus around them. This is really interesting to me because I know some of you have felt like you're under house arrest, to felt like you cannot experience the normal life, a life together with other people, with your friends, with your family, with your church family. And so you long for this urging to be back together, to be back with your friends. Paul shares this particular angst and longing. And I know that you want it too. So listen up as he encourages you to live a life worthy of the calling. He actually says, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling. This word in the Greek speaks of a parent or a king that says to their children or their subjects to carry out and to appear before their presence. This would be like, listen, I'm sitting on the couch and I can't get up because maybe I sprained my ankle, but someone needs to do the dishes. So I scream, Joshua, can you come down and do the dishes? I need you to do this because I can't do it currently. Or the king that says, it's not my role to be the general. It's not my role to serve as an advisor. But when I call the general or the advisor to my place, they come and carry out what I ask them to do. Paul is leaning into this idea of there's something that's so important. This idea, this alelon, that we'll get to that word in just a minute. The idea of being with each other, this idea of one another, this idea of community that he's missing. And he's not just missing it as a selfish way of saying, I wish I could be there, but he's saying, you guys need to experience it. You guys need to enter into it. You guys need to have it. So I urge you, I implore you, I ask you to make every effort to enter into this community. And then he offers three identifiers of how to carry that out and what it looks like and how you as an individual should know whether you are interacting in the correct way with the rest of the people around you. So he offers these three conditions. He asks them to be completely humble, to be gentle, and to be patient. Humble, gentle, patient. Humble, gentle, patient. What does humility look like when it comes to interacting with people around you? Are you quick to have you be first and to get what you want and to be proud that you obtained it, that people need to celebrate you, that you need to be the center of attention? Paul is saying that's not the characteristic of the Jesus community. The Jesus community is humble, putting other people first and you last. He also says gentle, which I know some of you have used the word tough love, and believe me, I use that word too. But he's saying to be gentle with one another, not to be harsh, not to be mean, not to be sarcastic, not to be cutting, not to be even joking in a way that might tend to hurt someone else. But instead, be gentle, be kind, be respectful, and finally, be patient. Now, this is the hardest word out of the three for me to wrap my head on. I am so impatient. But when it comes to other people, inside a Jesus community, inside embracing the alelon, the one another, It means that we have to be patient with others. Not everyone is going to operate at the same high level that we want them to. We need to be kind. We need to be patient, leading them along. Well, then he continues. This is again in verse 2. He says to be completely humble and to gentle and to be patient, bearing with one another, there's our word, bearing with one another, alelon, bearing with one another in love. Now, the word here that he adds to bear in love, and then alelon, the one another in the middle of that phrase, is where I want to spend the rest of our time talking today. Because I want to show you an opportunity and maybe inspire you to step in to living out a community with the people around you and tapping in to this Jesus community that really does bring you fulfillment. So Paul encourages the readers of his letter, the people in Ephesus, this church, and I believe you today, to bear with one another in love. Now, the Greek word here for bear with is it has different nuances to it. And so I'm going to offer 3 different nuances, actually, 3 different definitions, and maybe one of these will strike a chord with you that will allow you to live it out in a greater fashion today. So, number one is this particular word, to bear with, to forbear, also means to hold fast. In fact, it's a similar word that's used in the ancient vows of a wedding. Do you remember those? Do you remember your wedding? Maybe you've experienced a wedding, maybe even during this COVID time, one of those strange weddings. But in the midst of the vows, they will ask the groom and the bride that, will you take this person to have and to hold? To have and to hold. That word hold is the same word here as he's asking his church to hold with or to bear with love one another. So when the pastor or the priest asks the groom and the bride that will they make a vow to hold one another, they're not talking about spooning. They're not talking about hugging. They're not talking about getting close to each other. It's something deeper. It's this idea that when times get tough, when you go through struggles, when you go through pain, that you actually help hold the person up during those times. That you stand with them. That you become their rock. That maybe at a time when they're weak, you can be strong. And then vice versa, when you're weak. Do you see the importance of this inside a Jesus community? We are always stronger together. And the moment that we step away from community, the moment that we step away and break that vow that we've made to God with each other, to stand with each other, is the moment we expose ourselves, the moment we lean on our own strength, and so that when times come when we become shaky, that foundation is broken, well, we don't have anything to stand on. More importantly, we don't have anyone to help us, to hold us up, to bear with us in love. So that's number one, this wedding expression, this wedding vow, to hold someone up in the midst of the struggle. Do you know someone who's going through a struggle? Do you know someone who's going through pain? Maybe the death of a loved one. Maybe the anxiety of feeling a rough time with how school will be starting or church will be starting or maybe losing their job. How can you as a Jesus follower, you as someone who wants to learn what it's like to live life not just for themselves, but for someone else and for something bigger, how could you hold them up? How could you encourage them? How could you strengthen them and to be their rock? And maybe in a week, in a month, in a year, in a few years, when you hit your time where you're starting to shake, where you're starting to fall through, they might even return the favor and be there to hold you up to. Number 2 expression that I want to talk through, that this word has a sentence nuance for it, is this word to bear with, to hold down, is also a tent-making word. And I think many of you guys have experienced what it's like to experience tents or campers during this time, because a lot of us go camping during the summer. And maybe just recently you've had the experience of setting up a tent so that maybe you or your kids or maybe someone else could sleep on the ground and have this experience of being outside in nature in a tent. Now, I haven't had a lot of experience in tent making, but I know one key thing when it comes to tent making that you need to make sure that tent is anchored into something secure. I remember one of the first weeks that I visited Davison Free Methodist Church was a week where a massive storm, even a tornado, had ripped through Otisville area, and there were people actually at the camp that experienced unbelievably high winds and storm conditions. Have you ever been camping? Have you ever been camping in one of those classic Michigan thunderstorms come through and you're scared for your life? Can you imagine that if you did not secure your tent to the ground, that what would happen to you in those moments? That your tent would be lost, would be blown in the air, would be gone. So what Paul is saying in this point is, as one another's, to be each other's tent stake, to be their grounded one. You see, there all become times where we become confused. When we struggle to find an answer, and maybe we feel like we don't know where we're going, and it would be great to have someone to tether us down, to hold us down. Recently, my kids had this great idea to make a tent out of our trampoline in our backyard. And they had watched a YouTube video, and they had seen some how-to pictures of how to do that online, and they thought it would be easy. And they brought blankets out and tarps out, and they began to just throw them over the top of our trampoline, hopefully making this beautiful, wonderful tent trampoline. Well, it was a windy day. And the wind was blowing, and whether it was a towel or a blanket or a tarp, all of them became a kite as they began to fly through the backyard. And I came out, and I taught my kids an important idea of how to fasten things down, that even when the wind comes, they don't blow away. And it might get loud, and it might shake, but it doesn't blow away. So, the question is, who can you be grounded for? Who can you be a tent stake for? Who can you to give an encouraging call and just to say, hey, I'm here for you. I'm not going anywhere. No matter how much the wind blows, no matter what the storms of life bring, I'm here for you. I'm hanging in there with you. I'm pulling for you. And I will be here no matter what. That's a key component to this one another community, this allelone community with Jesus and with the people around us. Third component. Third component is a construction term. And this has to do with an idea of reinforcing a beam or a structure so that when bad times come, it doesn't fall over. To reinforce it. And so this idea of reminding people, reminding each other about the love and the consistency that God brings to us and in us. So this is where it's important that you have a common language and a common understanding within the Bible of the things that God has done in the past, the things that he might do right now, and the things that he's going to do in the future. And then reinforce those ideas, reinforce those key characteristics of who God is, his faithfulness, his grace, his mercy that never changes. To remind those to each other, to spur one another on, to encourage one another, to bear with one another means not just to be there for them, but while you're there for them, to whisper, to remind, and to encourage each other about the things that they know are true, but sometimes in the storm or in the calamity, we forget. So the Jesus community is also there to remind us, to reinforce those key things about who God is and how he loves the community around him. So that's the message today. Our encouragement for you today is to lean into what you can do to be there for someone else. Over the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about how to be unified with one another, how to love one another, how to be humble with one another, and then how to organize ourselves in one another groups. So here's the request. You knew it was coming. Here's the end of the message and an invitation for you to consider. You see, as we enter into a new way of doing church, there's something that's an old way that's never changed, an old way that embraces this idea of allelon, one another. And my encouragement to you is to consider joining and maybe even leading a group of people that would bond together in allelon, one another. Now, and many times in churches, these particular groups or huddles have been called many things, whether it be small groups or circle groups or discipleship groups or fellowship groups, whatever they're called. I would like you guys to start praying now, to start considering now the opportunity to be a part of one of these. We're not sure what the future holds. We're not sure what kind of trials might lead over the next horizon. But I can guarantee that we can go through whatever comes together. And if you know that Jesus is believable, that he's trustworthy, when he says that we should love one another, that this is the show of the love that he's given us. And Paul, as a prisoner, as someone who's experienced the sweet taste of community and then have that ripped away from him, urging his church to return to this, to embrace this, to find this one anotherness amongst each other. It's going to be so important for us moving forward in whatever reality we face. So, the big ask is please pray and consider about being part of a small group and possibly leading a small group. And we'll give you more invitations and more opportunities to experience that and to sign up for that and to register for those in the future. But my prayer and encouragement is that you would consider just that. Now, let me just say one more thing and then we'll pray. Maybe you're watching today. Maybe you're watching today and you aren't even close to Davison in our community. And you might say, hey, listen, I'd love to be a part of a group like that, but I mean, I live in another state. I live in another country. Still consider it. Because we've got some wonderful ways in technology that we're discovering and unearthing the ways for even you to be connected to a greater community, for you to feel the benefits of the allelon community, this one another, that we still would like you to consider that, because I think we've got an opportunity for even those people who may feel their location is a little too far away. So stay tuned, keep checking in with us, and we'll get you some more information. That's our message today. Let me pray for you. Father, I love you and thank you for designing us in a way not just to respond to you in love, but to respond to one another in love. And I know that it's true that we are better together, that we are better with one another. And so, Father, I pray for everyone out there who is alone. I pray for everyone out there who's experiencing loneliness, who feels isolated. I pray that right now that you would encourage them with your Spirit. And Father, that the rest of us would begin to reach out and to make the phone calls and write the letters and send the texts and the emails, that we could encourage and bear with one another in love. And Father, that you would bring to us anyone who's feeling lonely, that we might reach out to them. And Father, for those that are feeling lonely, I pray your encouragement and strength. And for those, Father, that we are feeling lonely, that we would actually begin to reach out to others too, and take that initiative and to bear with one another in love. Father, I pray a blessing over everyone who's watching today. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen and amen. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week.